welcome. It's so nice to have you. It is our community. I'm Mary Davidson, and I have a very interesting guest. She and I have been friends for a number of years. We don't need to tell that we're
Our lines will tell us.
No, that's not. Her name is Mahnaz Shabbir. She is the president and founder and chief operating officer of Shabbir Advisors, where she does strategic planning, feasibility studies, diversity training, website design, and she is also extremely active in the Crescent Peace Society, which is a Muslim organization that does exactly that, promotes peace among all the children of God.
Yes.
And she spends a lot of time doing that. I want to go back to that picture that we saw before I introduced you, and I think we're going to talk about the religion of Islam today. And I love this picture, so I just made an executive decision to show it to you as well. There are a great number of, well, not a great number, several angels in the religion of Islam. And the angel standing at the door is Ridwan. And Ridwan is the keeper of heaven, and he is welcoming Muhammad in the orange robe, and sitting on the shoulders of Muhammad is the angel Gabriel. And now I think it's kind of interesting to talk about that because Gabriel is an archangel. And I think that if we look at the religions, we see a lot of it repeated among the different religions of the world. Do you agree or not?
I do. Well, we as Muslims, we believe it's the continuation of the faiths from the time of Adam, of the different prophets. So we feel it's just a continuation, and that when the people would lose their direction of what God had sent them with the different prophets over the centuries, then he would send another prophet. And then we believe that the last prophet he sent was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all those prophets. And so we do believe it's just a continuation, with that being the final communication.
But you know, if you really think about it, life is on a continuum as well. I mean, life in general. And the stories, the ancient stories of the flood, for example, I mean, that appeared long before the Old Testament.
Yes.
And so the stories are repeated in a little different form, but still on a continuum. The center of Islam is in Mecca, and it originated in the early 7th century. Now, the Kaaba is in Mecca.
Yes, Kaaba. Mm-hmm.
Kaaba,
mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I know that it is extremely important in the religion. Can you talk about that just a bit?
Sure. Well, the Kaaba was built by Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael. So what you see in the pictures, if you ever Google the Hajj, the
mm-hmm.
pilgrimage, which is actually about to start now, you'll see a black cube, and it was built by these two people. And in fact, right next to the Kaaba are actual footprints of Prophet Abraham that's kind of encapsulated. It's very difficult to walk between that and the Kaaba itself when it's during the Hajj period.
Before we hit that again, behind the Kaaba is the mosque, the big mosque of Mecca.
Yes,
correct?
Yes. Well, that was first. This Kaaba was first.
Oh, the Kaaba was first.
Yes. It was a desert.
Right, it still is sort of.
So, well, you have to
yes.
go back to the time of Prophet Abraham. And so, Prophet Abraham had married Sarah, and then when they didn't have any children, he had married Hagar. Hagar had a son, and then Sarah had her son Isaac, and then Sarah said, send Hagar and Ishmael away. And so he took him to this place. It was just a desert. And he left provisions, but then when the provisions were gone, Hagar was just left with the baby, and she was walking back and forth between these two mountains, and she put the baby down and asked God for water, and Ishmael kicked his heel and the Zamzam water appeared. So the Hajj rituals actually reenact that walk. It goes between these two mountains. The Zamzam water is still flowing today. Now also the place of Mecca has changed a lot since that time.
Well, I think we can show the mosque, the big mosque of Mecca, and the city behind it. I mean, it's really
huge.
It's huge.
And it's growing bigger and bigger. So,
and then in front, you can see the Kaaba.
yeah, okay, so this is not during the Hajj period. See,
No.
there's hardly, and there's just a few people walking around.
I know, this is the time to go.
Yeah, and then what's under construction are several hotels, and I mean, that's one of the things that I wish that the Saudi government did, was preserve, like how we preserve areas of historical significance, but because there's such a demand, they've been demolishing significant places and building these huge towers. And so,
Well, and we can move from nobody at the Kaaba
Yes.
to a Hajj at the Kaaba, and I think that you will see a great increase in the numbers of people.
That picture there is during the Hajj period, yes. And it's so hard that people are walking around that like 7 times. And I can tell you, when I went...
Now, you have done the Hajj.
Yes, in 2010, I was able to touch all 3 of the walls except for that front wall where the door is. I wasn't able to get that close. It was too difficult.
It's a beautiful structure.
Yeah.
What's inside?
There's, I've seen pictures of it. Like you, I couldn't go inside it myself, but it's just an open area. So the thing is that after Prophet Abraham came to and was teaching about the oneness of God, over the time period, people had forgotten. And so in the Kaaba, this became like a central point of commerce. So there was like, because the trade, the caravans and things of that were coming through, and the people had forgotten the oneness of God, and they actually started putting idols inside there. And then when Prophet Muhammad was told by Angel Gabriel through God, God had told Angel Gabriel to tell Muhammad to destroy the idols. That's what caused a lot of friction between the people in Mecca and the teachings of Islam, because he was changing everything when he brought Islam.
Well, and Islam is a monotheistic society, and there are no idols.
No.
It is one God.
Yes.
Sound familiar? And I think that we need to talk about the Sunnah.
The Sunnah,
and the Hadith.
Hadith, yes.
The Sunnah is?
Well, the Sunnah is, we're talking about the laws and of our faith, and then Hadith is how the Prophet led his life. Stories of
They're just accounts of Muhammad.
Yeah, of what he was teaching the people. Because there's 2 ways of us as a Muslim to learn about our faith. One is through the Quran, which was the holy book of Muslims, and then how the Prophet lived his life, because he was bringing a new concept to this area, because they had forgotten. They'd forgotten all the different prophets that had taught about the oneness of God. And so, like for example, how women are treated. Before Islam came to this area, women were considered a property, and baby girls were being killed when they had no value. And then when Prophet Muhammad came and was teaching Islam, said, no, we need to value women, we need to show respect. And when his daughter Fatima would walk into the room, he would actually stand to show this is how we respect women as a conversation. And then also about where does heaven lie? Like a person came to the Prophet and asked him, who should we respect after your mother? And he kept on saying, your mother. The 3 times he said, your mother. And the 4th time he said, your father. Because for a Muslim, we know that if we want to go to heaven, it's a concept that we have to give the most respect to our mother.
Sounds good to me.
Me too, as a mother of 4 boys.
That's right.
And so, again, it was to show about the importance of women. And then he also put a law in about that women could own property and inheritance.
And that had never been before.
No, not even in America until, the late 1800s. So this was back in 600.
That's right. This is the 7th century,
right?
Which is in the 648, something like that.
Yes.
But think about what happened to Islam in that between the 7th and the 8th century. By the time the 8th century came along, the Islamic Empire stretched from Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain, and clear over to the Indus River, which is in India.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of land. But how did that happen? There must have been a lot of movement of the faithful back and forth.
Right. So we're talking about the caravans, how people were,
Yeah.
movement from one side to the other, and then there were the people would want to hear about the religion, and so people were going to talk about it, not proselytizing, but just sharing.
Talking, yeah.
But then there would be like the caravans would come through the city, because this is how things went from the east to the west,
Yeah.
was through this part of the world, and then they would take it back. One of the misnomers that comes out is that Islam was spread by the sword. But then even when Genghis Khan was, he was not Muslim, but he invaded and took over, those people became Muslim. So here was an invader conquering people, and then he became, and his I don't know about him himself, but the people who were the conquerors became Muslim. So that's how it spread.
But if you stop and think of Islam in the 8th century, you see not only a religion but a way of life.
Yes.
that out of which came scientific and cultural and economic areas, the like of which really has had very few equals.
Right. Vern Barnett would say, our number system is from the Arabic world, and he said, try to do your taxes using Roman numerals. And so we're glad we have Arabic numbers. And Baghdad was actually a center of learning at one point, where they were doing surgeries,
and
medicine, surgeries and things of that. And yes, it was like the highlight. Even during the Renaissance period, it was a place where people from the East would come and learn and become educated. So, it was a wonderful time period for Muslims.
Well, it was the flower of Islam
Yeah.
at that time. You took the Hajj.
I did.
When you came back, how were you changed?
Internally and externally. So as you know, Mary, I didn't wear the scarf. It was a conversation that I had before going, whether or not I would wear the hijab, is how I call it. And I didn't know. People were asking me even when I was on the Hajj, because during the Hajj, everyone's covered. You have to be covered.
In white?
Well, when we're actually in the Hajj period itself, it's white, but even right before that, you're wearing different coloring clothing. And so it was a conversation piece I had if I would continue when I came back. And when I was there, I decided that I will try to do one day at a time. I wasn't going to commit like forever. That's a long time.
It is.
But I could say let me do for today. I'm going to wear the scarf, and today I'm going to wear. And now it's part of my body, and so I enjoy wearing it. I started off with just a few scarves, and now
you have a whole drawer full.
Many drawers now, and hangers with different color scarves. And I'll go to stores, and other people will go and shop for one thing. I'll go and see what the scarves look like.
Well, but it makes a personal and a religious statement.
Yeah, and then internally, I think for me, I became more spiritually inclined. I was much more observant in all my prayers, and just the way my being changed, more calm. I didn't,
The boys didn't get to you.
No, the boys didn't. I mean, they still do sometimes. In fact, somebody was saying, "Oh, you're so soft-spoken." I said, "Except when I'm yelling at the boys."
That's right.
But and that was just a joke. That was actually the number 2 son. I was saying that too. But no, it really shifted. And as each level, I think, as we go through life, our spirituality can change, and
well, we change.
Yeah, and as we grow older, and I've become more spiritual too.
I think it's important to note here that Islam is the second largest religion and the fastest growing religion in the world, and we're talking at this moment. It changes moment by moment, but about 1.7 billion people in our planet are Muslim. And I think that 23%, that figures about 23–24% of the world's population, which includes all the sects of Islam, I'm certain. I have to talk about the conflict in today's world between the Sunni and the Shia, and we need to talk about that because I don't think most people know what the difference is.
Sure. Well, of that 1.7 billion, basically, Muslims in the world, about 90% of the Muslim population are Sunni. And when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he died, there was a question of who should lead the faith. And there was a group of people who felt that he had not designated a successor. And then there was a group of people who felt that he had. And so it was from that moment of time, from his death, that there was the question. And so over the years, that has been an issue. But there isn't that much difference from the actual practice of Muslims, of all Muslims. All of us, we pray 5 times a day, we fast, we go for the Hajj, as we talked about, we give money for charity, we believe in the oneness of God. These are all the same.
The 6 pillars of Islam.
The five pillars, yeah, of Islam. It's all
I
the
added
same.
one.
What's that?
I added.
Yeah, you added one. Well, there's a lot of laws, and so you could add more. But even like when I was at the Hajj, everyone is there. When you look at that picture, you can't tell which is Sunni and which is Shia. We're all together as one group, and all together from all different parts of the world. Like you were just sharing, the largest concentration of the Muslims comes from Indonesia, and then after that it was Pakistan, India. But now India is actually surpassing Pakistan and will surpass Indonesia. But there was a group from a former Soviet Union country. They were sitting behind me and they saw a bag that said USA, and they were kind of sign languaging because I didn't know Russian and they didn't know English, and they wanted to know where I was from in America.
Did you tell them Philadelphia?
No, I was trying to say Kansas City, but they didn't know Kansas City. So then I said Chicago, Kansas City, and then they go, oh. Okay.
Mahnaz was born in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I was born in Philadelphia. That's right.
But the conflict has escalated to the point where it's really bad. A man by the name of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was a Sunni, and he is the one who put together what we call ISIS. And he's not a particularly friendly character.
No, but all Muslims, no matter Shia or Sunni, do not feel like what that man and what he's been doing follows what the teachings of Islam.
Exactly, and I think that's a point we have to come down hard and
right.
make.
And even though he calls himself Sunni, even the Sunni community don't recognize him. In fact, I was just reading something it was in today's news, and I didn't get to read the whole thing, but there's some kind of a conference, and they're not even allowing that sect of what he is believing to even be part of this clerical group because it's so extreme.
Well, basically, Islam is a peaceful, kind religion.
Yeah, it is. Well, the word Islam, salam, means peace, like in shalom. It's from the same derivative, and so it's against our nature of what's happening. We're horrified. In fact, what he is doing, most people don't realize that most of the people that he's killing are other Muslims, and they're both Shia and Sunni. It's all Muslims.
Bashar Assad al-Aziz is not much better.
No.
Now he's an Alawite, which we really don't want to go into because that's a whole different story.
Yes.
But there are more than 2 sects of Islam.
Yeah, just like in Christianity, you have Catholic and Protestant, and within Catholic you have different denominations, and Protestant you have different denominations. Same thing in Islam, you have Shia and Sunni, and amongst those groupings there are subsets of all of those.
Well, I can't end a conversation. I am fascinated with the angels.
Yes.
I don't know why, I'm not so sure, but I am. And so therefore I'm the decider here. So we're going to talk about angels just a little bit.
Angels.
And the first one, as you may recall, the angel Gabriel brought to Muhammad the word of God, which is the Quran. and there is the angel Gabriel. And if you notice, the angel is neither male nor female. It is an angel, by the by, and they don't have any particular gender other than Gabriel is a male name, so I suppose. But if you look at that, it's really hard to tell.
And in Islam too, it depends on who's doing the painting.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually an artist's rendering of that.
Uh-huh.
But we don't. Most people, most Muslims, we don't show a face of either the prophet or of the angel, because it's just someone's, mind of how they are wanting to create it. So usually they have like just a veil over each of their faces.
But the word in Arabic, malak, which is the Arabic for the angel, means messenger.
Yes.
And so that was the task that was visited on the list of angels, and they had different, they communicate revelations, they glorify God, they record every person's actions, and they take the soul to heaven at the time of death.
Even when you're going around the Hajj, when you're going around, there's a place where people say Salam Alaikum, because Salam Alaikum means peace be unto you, because we're wanting the angels to record that we were here. Make note that we are here walking. So when our time comes, that it'll be recorded that we were here.
Well, and in the Buddhist religion, when you enter the place of prayer, you hit the gong three times so that the Buddha will listen and know that you are there. So, those likenesses keep coming up. In the Old Testament, the angels had essentially that same duty, and there was no name because they were messengers from God. So no angel had a name until the book of Daniel, if I'm correct. Hopefully, I know somebody will correct me if I'm not. But angels were not named because they too were messengers and brought the word of God down to earth. So,
the Arabic word for Gabriel is Jibrail, just for information purposes. Yeah. Yeah. So we say Jibrail.
And we can look at the whole list of angels, which each has a different duty, and I think it's kind of interesting, and you might be interested in looking as well. And there is Jibril, right in charge. He's in charge of communicating all his words to the prophets. And the prophets are Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, to name a few there.
To name a few, yeah. Because we believe there's like over 1,200, but those are like the...
I don't know anymore.
Those are
I'm done. And then you see there's Israel, which is in Arabic. You'll have to pronounce that, Israfil.
Israfil.
And he's in charge of blowing the trumpet on the day of judgment. And Mikhail in charge of rainfall and sustenance. Munkar and Nakir, after death, these angels will question souls in the grave about their faith and deeds. And Malak, the angel of death, in charge of taking possession of souls after death, and Malik, the guardian of hell, and Ridwan, the guardian of heaven. And you remember Ridwan is opening the gate in the early picture that we saw, opening the gate for Muhammad and the angel Gabriel to enter the heaven. Talk about Sharia just a little bit.
Sure. Sharia means law. And so, like right now, I'm actually, with my head covering, I'm practicing Sharia. When my two older boys got married, the wedding ceremony was with Sharia.
I was at that wedding, and it was a beautiful wedding.
And so it's laws. So when you say Sharia law, it's just a saying law. I mean, like I was telling the kids at Barstow School today, like when you see chai tea, it's saying tea, just so you know, it's the same word. And so Sharia is just the laws of how we practice our faith.
I want to go back a minute too, because I think that we need to talk about where Islam is located for the most part, and it's right where all of this trouble is happening. And as you know, Bashar Assad is in Iran. And we talk about northern Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Lebanon. Are these people mostly Sunni or Shia? Now, Saudi Arabia is Sunni.
Yes. So, like, remember I was talking about the 1.7 billion. So, the Arab population of that is only about 20%. So, what we're talking about in this part of the world is about 20% of the population. So, that means the rest of them are in Asia itself, or in Europe, or South America, or Africa. So, Iran is primarily a Shia country. Iraq is 60% Shia. And Lebanon is, I think, about 40%, maybe 50% Shia. And the rest of the population are Sunni.
It presents a problem, does it not?
Yeah, but I don't think that all the problems are not religion-based. It's so much politics are involved, and man has used politics and religion for their own purposes. So it's not religion that causes war. It's not the conflicts of religion that causes the wars. It's human beings over power, and that's what's causing war.
Well, and for centuries, the Sunni and the Shia lived together and rather quietly.
They did. In fact, in Iraq, there were many, before the invasion from the U.S. into Iraq, there were many marriages between Shias and Sunnis. There weren't any issues, really. But what the issues were in Iraq were of having Saddam, who was a minority person, over a majority of another faith, and then he ran the country as a ruthless dictator. And that's, then there's a whole topic there that we can go into about the Iraq War.
And I think there are people that say, well, why should we even care? It's a worlds away and the culture's away, and we don't care. So
right.
What do you have to say about that?
What I have to say about that, and this is what I told these young people this morning, is that we have to see that we are not an isolationist. We live in a global community. We can speak to people instantaneously now across the world, and our lives are connected. It's not like, the whole thing with the butterfly, if it flaps its wings on one side, can it be felt on the other side? And yes, it can be felt. And as a Muslim living in America, the Crescent Peace Society has put numerous press releases condemning the different atrocities that have happened on the other side of the world. But when something else happens, like, let's say, like in the South Carolina, the Charleston, the shooting that happened there, the Christian community didn't have to denounce that. Everyone knew that's not Christianity. But we're still doing this education process. In fact, some of Muslims feel, why do we have to even say anything about what's going on over there? That has nothing to do with us.
Because we have to keep trying to build peace.
And
we are no longer citizens of a state or a county we are world citizens because the world is shrinking.
That's exactly
all the time.
In fact, I don't even like state line here in Kansas City.
That's right, I don't either. And we got all we can do to work on that. But I think that it does us all good to talk to people of peace and goodwill about the differences that really are not as big as we make them sometimes. I worry. I worry about our future.
I do too, but then I also feel that we can do something. Like I feel like, for example, talking to these 7th graders at Barstow School this morning, it was like, okay, these are, 12, 13-year-old?
That's where you can make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, I want you, I'm planting a seed in you and you and you to do something different.
And that seed says, God's house has many mansions, and there is room for all people, all religions, all cultures, all people of goodwill are welcome. And so as I thank Mahnaz Shabbir, I would say to her and to you, Salam alaikum, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Wa alaikum salam. Peace be back to you.
And thank you for being with us.